Welcome to the show. This is Internet Uncapped. I am your host, Evan. Joining me is Mitchell. We actually have to change the background because we are not talking about iDubbbz. But that'll work. That's
Oh,
good. Oop, we got blacked out. Okay, all right, perfect. We're in the mystical forest. All right, today we are going to talk about the Office spinoff, kind of, sort of, the paper, and just a little background for the paper. And okay, well, I guess Macho Man Evan Savage is also in the background as well. So, the Office, as many of you may or may not know, sitcom and on NBC. Ran from 2005 to 2013, 9 seasons, seven of which were some of the best on cable television at the time, or network or television. I think that's more accurate to say. But anyway, you had Steve Carell, Rainn Wilson, John Krasinski, Oscar Martinez, all the crazy cast characters in the show The Office. And of course, there was Parks and Recreation, which, although not a direct spin-off of The Office, kind of similar, mockumentary style, takes place in sort of the Parks and Rec department, in a completely different place, completely different town, very unrelated to each other. But The Office definitely was sort of the revitalization of that kind of format.
mhm.
Very much popularized it. Paved the way for even shows like Modern Family and many others. Certainly, there's all kinds that sort of followed that similar model. Some were successful, some were very, very bad, very poor, and there's still some very poor, rip-offs that are even on TV today. But we're going to talk about the paper because the paper is directly related to The Office, and it sort of directly goes into what happened with the camera crew that followed the Dunder Mifflin Paper Company, and where they're going to be focusing their sort of subjects now. So they go from, of course, Scranton, Pennsylvania, to Toledo, Ohio. And they go, and Dunder Mifflin was actually bought off by the former, somewhat downsized building called the Toledo Truth Teller, which is they're basically their local newspaper, but they're struggling because it's a newspaper. They have to adapt with the times. Things are more online. Things are more clickbaity, whatever. But obviously, they want to get to their roots. They want to do journalism at its finest, but nobody knows what they're doing. Nobody knows how to get to that place. Oh, and also, the original Dunder Mifflin, when it moved to Toledo, they became a toilet paper selling company called Softies. So that was there were a lot of different various changes, some very interesting shifts here and there. But that's sort of the main general premise. But we're going to go ahead and do a deep dive into the characters, into each of the episodes of this season. So if you don't want any spoilers, you can sign off at any time. But we're going to go from the beginning, the middle, and toward the end of the season, leading to sort of the climax that leads into the now confirmed season 2. So, Mitchell, if you want to go ahead and do your thing, let it rip.
Okay. Um, first and foremost, the way that they introduce like the very beginning of the show is they do text on the screen, and they start talking about how the production company that did The Office, well, it's been this many years since the last episode air, and they go back to where Dunder Mifflin was, and like you said, they show what has happened since then. And they show Bob Vance, aka Phyllis's husband from Vance Refrigeration. They show him, and his company is still there, but Dunder Mifflin is no longer there. It is now a laser eye surgery place, like office or building or something like that. That is what has taken over Dunder Mifflin. Dunder Mifflin, like you noted, has moved to Toledo, and I liked I like the beginning in that instance where they showed Bob Vance,
Mhm.
and he mentions, oh, Phyllis and Stanley still go ahead and they hang out. I forgot what he said they do exactly, but something food related. And yeah, he talks about how Dunder Mifflin pretty much shut down in 2019. Um, which was interesting. I figured because The Office and all these other shows, or well, in this show they take place in the real world per
Right.
se.
Yeah.
So I figured they would have linked it to coronavirus. Like, oh, when COVID hit, it really did a number on everyone,
Mhm.
and Dunder Mifflin was one of the casualties. Like that to me, that would have been perfect. Um,
Mm.
and I would have liked to have maybe some other people, because when you think about the ending of The Office, Dwight and Angela take over,
Right. Yep.
and they Dwight owns the building, so
Yep.
why is he not there? And I know that reason why he's not there is because Rainn Wilson, he doesn't like being called Dwight. He doesn't mind the show, like he thinks the show was good, but he thinks the show had to end. And he said that to fans before. He was like, The Office couldn't go on forever. It had to end, guys. And
Mhm.
people go, boo. And he's like, boo me all you want. It had to end. Like, and he
Yeah.
stands by that. Let
Mhm.
me take a quick sip. And he once had on a podcast with Bryan Cranston or Heisenberg. And Bryan Cranston talked about how he loves that people call him Heisenberg or Walter White, and they don't call him Brian. He loves it. And Rainn Wilson or Dwight K. Schrute said he doesn't like that people just go ahead and just only call him Dwight.
Mhm.
Um, and he's very adamant about how he's like, Dwight is a character. I am Rain. And Bryan Cranston replied back with, "No, I love it. That just means you did such a good job of making that character so real and so believable that
Mhm.
everyone loves that character. That means you did your job as an actor." So, two different sides of that argument. So I could see maybe him not wanting to do it, and you can't show Angela and not show Dwight.
Right. Yeah.
You
True.
can't show Jim without Pam. Jim, John Krasinski, he's blown up since The Office.
Right.
He's done so many different things. Jenna Fisher, I haven't seen her in anything. I know that she was battling cancer. She was battling something.
Oh.
Um,
Uh,
I'm
yeah,
gonna
that
search
sounds
it up.
about right. That sounds very familiar, but I will double check right now. I think if
Yep,
she did
yep, I
battle
got it.
cancer. Oh, okay.
Diagnosed with stage one triple positive breast cancer in October 2023.
Yeah, I think she's cancer free as far as I remember.
October 2024, cancer free. Yep.
Yeah, but yeah, I remember that. Well, she had, and obviously we're not going to plug any shows, whatever. But she and the woman who plays Angela, they do have a sort of office flashback podcast, and they go over funny stories behind the scenes and that kind of thing. So yeah, she's not doing anything in terms of TV or movies, but she's
Yeah,
relatively
she's doing
successful. She's doing
something.
well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but when you think about like a show like The Office, who's the very first person you think of?
it's
Steve
going to be
Carell.
Steve Carell.
Yeah, and you think about everything that he's done, and obviously he had success prior and after. You look at Ed Helms; he's had so much success since that show. And you look again, John Krasinski; he's
Hmm.
had much success. Um, BJ Novak; he's been in a few things, never a starring role, but he's bounced around from different roles, and he's been more behind the scenes.
Yeah, yeah.
He's had a lot of different opportunities compared to some of these other, actors or actresses on the set, or on that set. Kelly Kapoor, Mindy
Mindy
Kaling.
Kaling has
Kaling.
been relatively successful. She had a sitcom, and it was like, The
She was a
Mindy
doctor.
Project or something.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I thought it was terrible.
So,
I
it's all good. No, I get it, and to each their own, right? But I just know that she's had a relatively successful run in TV, and she's
mhm.
not doing as much these days. I would agree with that, but certainly, but yeah, the Mindy Project, still, pretty successful. I
Yeah,
was never into it either. I never really watched the show, so I had
yeah,
no strong opinion on the Mindy Project, but I just heard it was successful.
yeah. And Erin,
Mhm.
who she showed up later, taking over Pam's job as the receptionist, and she went ahead and she had her own show on Netflix. I can't think of what it is. It's
Unbreakable Kimmy
Unbreakable Kimmy
Schmidt.
Schmidt. That's what it was.
Love
Yep.
Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. Tina Fey and Robert Carlock, who worked on 30 Rock.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was, oh, I love that show. It's
It
a
was
great
what,
show.
3, 4 seasons?
4 seasons.
Yeah, and it finished right.
And it finished a while ago at this point, but it was like
Yeah,
2015 to 2018.
yeah, and then they did that weird thing where you could choose the adventure, which was well, I honestly a lot of people crapped on it, but I thought
Hmm.
it was Netflix was still in its infantile stage, I would say, where
Yeah, in terms of a
people were trying,
streamer, but yeah,
yeah,
at
like
that
people were
point in
trying to
time.
figure out,
Hmm.
okay, like because when you think about DVDs at that time, like when you think about DVDs when we were kids, I
Yeah.
remember in the Madagascar DVD they had a game that
Oh,
you
yeah.
could play on the mat. Like you could play games on movies, and it was just
Yeah.
something really cheap and novel. Like I remember it was Madagascar 2. The plane
Uh-huh.
was falling, and you had to select parts. And if you select the right parts, the penguins would say something, and they'd be
Oh,
like, "Great job, Skipper! You got the right part." And then,
yeah.
again, it was something goofy, but it was just like a little extra thing that they just threw on the disc, and it was like,
Yeah.
"Thank you for buying the movie."
Yeah.
And Netflix kind of tried to emulate that with pick your own adventure. Like I know that the New Day, the wrestling group, they did a escape the Undertaker's house, and it's also a thing like
Yeah.
that too, where you have to escape the Undertaker's house and you choose what the New Day does.
Hmm.
So it's like a little goofy thing, but we'll stay on this.
So yeah.
Um,
Anyway,
yeah, we went on a tangent there, but that's fine. That's what this is
it's
all
all good.
about.
It's all good.
But
It
yeah,
all adds up.
yeah, I would have liked to have seen more. Like at the end of the show, Kevin, we know that he owns his bar now.
Hmm.
We know Dwight still owns Shroot Farms,
Yep.
but he owns that building.
Right.
So, it's kind of weird, but like I said, probably real world stuff. He didn't want to be involved with the project. I
Yep.
would get that. Creed. Talk about Creed. He got arrested. Is he
Hmm.
still in jail? They could definitely. I can see Creed showing up in season 2 being a homeless man and like sneaking around Toledo. Like he got away.
Yeah. Sure.
I want to
Sure.
see that.
Yeah, he'd be like a hobo, and then he would come in on the train, and then he'd
Yep.
be shelling all kinds of stuff and try to get into the building and all that. Yeah, I could see that too, 100% if they were to go that way.
Yeah, like what's Toby doing? Like Toby was down in the fucking dumps.
Oh man, yeah,
Um,
really. Poor
they,
Toby.
they had so many different people and so many different stories that
Yeah,
they I think they ended everything off really well at the end of The Office, but I would have liked to have seen more, even if it's just like a brief thing. Like Ed Helms, I mean, he's done a lot of movies, but he's also done like smaller projects too. He doesn't really turn down roles. I feel like he's down for whatever, and he
yeah,
talks about his time on The Office and how much he loved it.
yeah.
So I'm surprised. Like he was a producer for the sketch comedy group called Auntie Donna's Big Old House of Fun, and
Hmm.
he shows up and he starts like playing, like cracking jokes about himself. He's like, guys, it's me, it's Egg Helms, and then they're like, are you calling yourself Egg? He's like, yeah, I'm Egg Helms. They're like, I thought your name was Ed, and he's like, no, my name is Egg, like cracking an egg, and they're like, your IMDb says Ed. He's like, it doesn't say Ed. No, it says Ed. It says Ed. Check it out. It should say Egg. It doesn't say Ed. No, it says Ed. And they keep going back and forth. And then he looks at it, he goes, what the fuck? And he starts talking to his agent, and he's like, my name is Egg. Yeah, but I mean, again, like that's like a goofy thing. Like I could see him showing up for 5 minutes, and then
Sure.
everyone would be like, oh, there's Andy.
Yeah,
Like,
actually, there were some things that I had caught wind about. Apparently, on one of the first days of filming, John Krasinski and Steve Carell crashed into the paper studio that they were filming just to say hi. And like they weren't like obviously none of the episodes they weren't in the show, but definitely like you said there is that kind of familial connection with a lot of these really popular shows, and it really is because you're with everybody, you're working every day, you get to know people, and like these shows they end up becoming family because of how intimate you have to work with every single person, all the producers, all the crew, all the makeup, all the catering people, everything. So it was very interesting that of all people, John Krasinski and Steve Carell, two of their biggest stars, they actually came to say hi. That was actually pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. And then, excuse me. Yeah, I mean, again, it would have been nice to see more people. It would have been nice,
Mm,
like even when you look at the poster. Let me pull this up.
yeah,
I'm gonna share the screen.
I gotta pull up also the some of the names because I don't
And
remember
this
some of
is
the
this
people.
is on this is on Reddit.
Yeah.
When you look at it, one thing that I noticed, look at Oscar in this. He's kind of cut out a little bit, but everyone else is centerfold. Oscar's just kind of cut out. So for me, when I first saw, when I not when I like when I first saw this,
Yeah.
more so, I want to say after watching it, oh, why am I only big in your? There we go.
Oh. Oh.
Yeah, when I watched it, looking back at it, I was kind of like, Oscar didn't really have that big of a role. Like he was there a lot, but like he didn't really have as big of an effect on the dare I say the office of the
Yeah.
paper, than he did for the other one. But it's and it's like, is that deliberate? Like, are they trying to say out with the old, in with the new? I can kind of see in one instance them building up this new cast and not trying to really um I don't know how to put it. Like, are they trying to, establish this as an independent thing without the office? I don't know, but it's
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
it's I would have liked to have seen more. Just that first 5 to 10 minutes to me wasn't good enough. Even if Oscar was just like on the phone and then they showed like, and like maybe Oscar's being like really discreet about something. Like
Mhm.
he's like, "Oh, hi Toby, how are you?" And then he goes, "No, Toby, they're back. No, they're back. They're filming me. Toby, I don't want to be on TV either." And then he hangs up. Like, something like that would have been so funny.
Yeah, there was one part in the season where he actually was on the phone with Stanley, but it was
Yes,
very brief. It
but
wasn't
see,
even much of a
but
conversation.
they mentioned Stanley in the first episode too. But like, what about
Yeah.
everyone else? You got.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. No, I totally get that. I think
Mm,
yeah, that was so how I see it is similar but a little different than you, Mitchell. I think that they pitched it as just the paper. And then NBC said, "Well, we got our spinoffs, we got our this, we got our that. How about we actually connect it to The Office?" And that sort of came afterward. And I
mhm.
think that was more the selling point, not for them, more than for the audience themselves. It wasn't. I'm not convinced that people are like, "I'm not going to watch this unless it's connected with The Office." It was just like, we should probably put something else like a spinoff of The Office. Do you have any ideas? Oh, we're gonna do this. Oh, okay, fine, we'll do it. But we got to connect it to The Office in some ways. All right, fine, sure. Um, so I see this again. Like I see this a little like it is. There are some references here and there to certain characters in The Office. I do see the paper in general as its own thing, very similar to how Parks and Rec was its own thing, totally uninvolved with The Office when it was originally airing. But in this particular case, there is a much more direct connection because they do establish that the same documentary crew is the one that did Dunder Mifflin. Now they're doing a new subject, and it's the Toledo Truth Teller. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I just want to go over each of the different characters, but unfortunately, I don't have all the names in front of me, but I do have the pictures. So just give me 1 second. Okay, now I'm gonna go. Now I'm gonna share my screen. So we have from left to center left and right. So this is Ken Davies, who is I think he's either British or Welsh. But anyway, he's like a hybrid of David Brent, who was Ricky Gervais's character in the original Office, kind of Michael Scott. But he's also very different than both of them. He's a lot more he's a lot more snide, more sarcastic, and he definitely is much more of he's conniving. He kind of has his own agenda, and
Hmm.
he anybody runs Softies, which is the toilet paper company, and he has that kind of salesman sort of mentality, to him. Right here we have the managing editor of the Toledo Truth Teller. This is Esmeralda, who's like this Italian woman, and she's very kind of stereotypically fashionable, very, I wouldn't say the word is erudite, but it's that kind of upper class mentality that certain Italians might
Hmm.
have. And I've been to Italy, so like I kind of like got it from her. Apparently, she was in White Lotus originally, and she was like really good in that. So I was kind of surprised to see her in this because she was very dramatic in that show. But nonetheless, we'll talk about her in just a minute. Next up, we have this is Alex Edelman, who's a rising stand-up comedian. Mitchell, he's really, really good. You should definitely
Hmm.
check out some of his stand-up. But he plays Adam Cooper. They establish him 32 years old, has a wife, 4 children. There's kind of a sort of a man-child thing going on with him. But
Hmm.
overall, seems very endearing. Not too much is known about him other than his wife and 4 kids. But there's some jokes here and there that they kind of do that is fun. But they definitely need to round out his character a lot more. Next up, we have the copy writer Nicole. She's kind of shy, but then she sort of comes into her own later in the season. Obviously, she's dating this gentleman right here, who's kind of the BJ Novak, stand-in. His name is uh, Melvin Gregg, playing Dietrich Moore. I think he's not a copywriter necessarily, but I think he's like a reporter. I don't think he's a journalist, but he does a lot of desk work. I didn't know
Yeah.
what his exact role was, but that's the vibe I was getting from him. He was more of a writer more than an actual like out in the field journalist.
Hmm.
Next up we have uh, Edda. I'm gonna totally butcher this character's name. I think it's Edda Lola Ofen, also a
Alo-
writer on the show. Kind
Alofen.
of sarcastic,
Hmm.
kind of a I wouldn't call her goth necessarily, but she kind of has sort of bit of an attitude, and but she was interesting. Too still need to flesh out her character, whatever.
Hmm.
Then we go to the editor in chief, brand new editor in chief, and you may recognize him. This is Domhnall Hall playing Ned Sampson, who was originally a softies salesman. He worked at another softies branch, but then was hired to then take over as the editor in chief. You may recognize him from films such as Frank, as well as the Star Wars sequel movies. He played sort of the right hand man of Kylo Ren. And he's been in a bunch of movies. I mean, he's a really great actor. So I was very surprised to see his involvement. Because he's not like super famous, but he's relatively well known, especially because of Star Wars.
Hmm.
Um, and I'll just quickly just mention he does a really great job. I was very impressed. And comedy is one of the hardest things to do, especially for actors. So the fact that he pulled it off so seamlessly and understood his character for Ned Sampson, I give him a lot of props, give him a lot of kudos. Up next, we have Mari. What's her
Mar.
last name? Mari Mayor. Excuse me,
Mare. Yeah.
Mayor Pretty. Mayor is a former veteran. She served in, I believe, Iraq,
Yep.
and she also is. She has editorial experience and has been kind of like helping Ned Sampson sort of like ease into his role. Even though she's literally like not like upper management the way that Esmeralda was, but she definitely has her head on a lot straighter than Esmeralda. And then, of course, you have Oscar, because no good business could do without an accountant. I actually think, now that I think about it, I think Alex, right? Yeah, Adam. Excuse me. Adam is also an accountant too. I just realized that. So I think that's his role as
Hmm.
well. So
Yeah,
those are all of
and
the
there's
characters.
no. Well,
Sorry.
there's one person that's not on there, and that's Travis.
Travis. Yeah, so Travis is the owner of the building, and you don't see
Nope,
him in the main
nope, nope.
poster, but he
No,
does
that's
play a
not.
pretty prominent
That's
role.
no
Oh.
Travis. Travis is the other employee. He's the one
Oh,
that's
he isn't on the poster. Okay, we'll go over if you can find his picture, we'll pull that up in a minute. I'll explain Travis. Travis is a veteran, he's a upper senior, employee. He has actually been at the Toledo Truth Teller since about the '70s, I would say, and, he's kind of like Stanley
no.
and,
You're,
like,
you're thinking of the
Kevin
wrong. You think
and,
that's
like
Barry.
huh?
You're thinking that's Barry.
Oh, Barry. Well, Barry wasn't on the poster either.
Yeah.
So okay, so I'm mixing it up. It's This is still new. It's still very hard to remember some of these names. But yes,
All right.
Barry, that's Barry. So who's
I got.
Travis?
This is Travis. Boom.
Travis, that's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so yes, so Travis is an employee of Softies, but
Mhm.
in part of the show, he actually transitioned into having a job with the Toledo Truth Teller. But he kind of does still work for Softies, but he definitely is. It's like a part time thing. I think it's not quite clear like how that worked out. Yeah, and here's Barry. Yeah, so Barry. So like I said,
He's an
Barry
actual
is
reporter.
reporter, been there since the '70s, senior reporter, and he's kind of like Stanley, Kevin, kind of like that kind of Stan.
Creed.
Not quite as crazy as Kevin, but just like that kind of character.
Yeah, like in Creed too, where he's old.
And Creed, yeah, where he says like these like out of pocket kind of things and whatever. So I'll just go over just a few of the things. Um, the overview. I want to just start with the first 4 episodes because this was a tough thing to do to actually pull off a Office spinoff. And I think that Greg Daniels and the rest of the writers, and I gotta believe everybody involved knew that this was going to be a very Herculean task to try to figure out how to live up to one of the best sitcoms of all time. And it was evident because the first 4 episodes they were very confusing and they lacked a lot of actual like jokes and humor that was like funny. And Esmeralda in particular, but I'll let you elaborate on her in a bit. Esmeralda in the beginning of the show, she was the managing editor, and it definitely seemed like to suggest that she, you know, didn't know what she was doing, didn't quite know like what was going on, making a lot of crazy missteps. But the problem with her character was that I had a very hard time understanding why she does what she does. It just seemed kind of odd and very out of nowhere. Nothing was really particularly well explained about why, like what her motivations were. It just seemed like she was kind of not just petty for the sake of being petty, but she was making these just bizarre decisions and like mentioning these very strange, like out of context things like, well, if he, Ned Sampson, uh, don't worry about him. He it didn't do a Me Too or whatever, and sent an email like that to the entire, office without any kind of buildup or any kind of suggestion about it. It just her character at first was very confusing and it was a little odd. Ken Davies, I understood a lot more in the beginning, but certainly he got better as the show went along. But I was very worried as I was like, this is not very funny. But then we get to about episode 5 and on, and they definitely were figuring it out as they were filming. It was very clear when you get to episode 5 that they had a better idea of the direction that they wanted to go in. But even with those 4 episodes, which were again very humorless and very sometimes a little tough to get through, there was still very clear storytelling going on. There was still very good acting. There was still very good, transitions to certain things from one thing to the other. I mean, these characters were pretty much at ground zero, just getting started, because we didn't know any who they are, what their deal was. But you would know eventually by episode 5, and the humor did get better, and even the way that the show operated made much more sense. Establishing themselves as local journalists. I think that was good, but then it's a matter of, well, how are the situations going to be different than The Office, and how are they going to establish the kind of humor that they want to get out of, sort of like the integrity of the newspaper, and the integrity of the truth, and all,
Hmm.
all of that. And I think that was a question that they must have been racking their brains around for a long while. But like I said, they really got their acts together. They really figured it out. And even if they're still, like Adam or Barry or any of the other characters that we're still getting introduced to, we still don't know what some of the characters' deals are, but we know other characters, and they're really coming into their own, especially Nicole and Detrick. I won't say too much about them, but they kind of become an item at some point, and they are like exactly opposite of each other at first, but then there's some interesting sort of things going on. Um, but yeah, overall, I would say that it is a great start. um, we'll get to this in a minute. But before we end the show, I do want to actually go over potential ideas that I actually have, and that you may end up having, and where the direction of the paper may go. So before we get into that, yeah, Mitchell, why don't you go ahead and tell your thoughts about the overall episodes in the season?
Yeah. So in the beginning, you can tell that I felt like the writing just wasn't hitting too well. And at first, because I watched it through two times, the season twice. I watched everything twice. The first time I went through, I was like, I don't know if it's the timing, I don't know if it's the speed, I don't know if it's just the characters, but there's something that's off, and I'm not really liking it. Um, and for what I found it to be is kind of me, and this is just from my experience. I was trying to relate the characters two previous characters from The Office. And I felt like
Yeah.
that was ruining the experience for me the first time. And I kind of realized that going about a little bit more than halfway, like season 6 or 7 of the
Mm,
first go around. And then I watched it the second time. I went into it, thinking this is a new show. This is something that, yeah, it's in the same universe as The Office. This is a spin off. It is not a sequel. It's
right.
in the same universe, but it's supposed to be the same but different, the
Right.
same style but different people.
Hmm.
And when I went through, when I went through it the second time, I started thinking to myself, you know what? Like these are actually some pretty good characters. I kind of like this storyline that's going on. I kind of like this thing that's going on. I kind of like this thing that's going on. My favorite character in the whole show, honestly, I gotta say, is Mare.
Yeah.
I think she's really well written.
Yep.
She's sharp, she has a good head on her shoulders, and she just seems like just like the common person.
Yep.
She shows up, she does her job, she does have her career job, and the job that's her dreams, but it's kind of died on her because of just leadership, and the leadership being Esmeralda, who
Hmm.
doesn't really understand, and she just kind of wants to talk about Brad Pitt tipping their driver,
Yeah.
which was weird. um
Like I said, there were some weird decisions that they gave her character. It was like,
Yeah,
what?
but Mare to me, just see the way that she is written, she's my favorite character. Ned Sampson, he gives me Michael Scott, Ricky Gervais, and Ed Helms
Hmm.
uh,
Yeah.
vibes, where he's goofy, he's quirky, he means well, but he's kind of an idiot,
Yeah. Sure.
and he has his own little flair to it, and I like it. Um,
Yeah.
I look at Dietrich Moore. He's kind of like this quirky guy. He doesn't understand how to talk to women. He's always flirting with Nicole, and
Mhm.
he's trying to make a move on him. Travis is trying to help him. He doesn't know what the hell to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nicole, I am extremely relatable with Nicole. When I am at work, I do not like to talk to people.
Yeah.
I like to do my 8 and skate. and
Yep.
she is the same exact way. I relate. She is my spirit animal. That is Nicole. She just wants to do her job and go home.
Yep.
Um,
For sure.
at Adalola, um, not too much from her.
Yeah, not yet. She good start, but we need to know more.
Yeah, I want to know more about her. No one really was interacting with her too much. Like she had some moments
Yeah.
Adam, like when they were
Yes.
going and Travis, like she had some moments
Mhm.
with them,
Yep.
but and even with Oscar, but there was just small moments.
They were. They were.
It wasn't anything
Yep.
too big. Obviously they're trying to establish their core characters, which is going to be Ned, it's going to be Mare, and then it's going
Yeah.
to be Esmeralda, which I'm hope. Well, I'll
Yeah.
get to her in a second, but that's their big three. Those are their core people. Oscar is fan service. He is there because he is
Right.
a blast from the past, and he is kind of like what Player 4, 5, 6 is
Mhm.
from Squid Games. Guys, I've played these games
Right.
before. That's the vibe that
Yeah.
he gave me with trying to tell everyone. And then Barry. Barry is just he's a blast from the past. That's what he is. He's that guy that is like, this is how we did
Yep.
things back in the day. It's like, okay, boomer. Um, but overall, I think the
Yeah.
cast is really well done. They had some good storylines. Um, Adalola, I'm
Yeah,
probably
I
butchering
don't
her
know
name. I
how
think
her
it's how
name
it's
is
pronounced.
pronounced either. I'm just looking, I'm like, I don't remember this name, but sure.
Yeah, I want to see
Me too.
more from her going
Yep.
forward. I want to see more. And before I pass it over
Yep.
to back to you, Evan,
Yep.
Esmeralda, I'm not a fan. I found her to just
Yeah.
be a nuisance. I found her just like her. She's doing things to, like with Kelly. Kelly was a
True.
nuisance in the office. But when you look at why she was a nuisance, it was because she idolized Kim Kardashians and celebrities, and she wanted to be like them so flipping
Right.
bad. She wanted to emulate them. She wanted it to always be about her, and about everything that she idolizes, which
Yeah.
is again celebrities. Like she idolizes them. She thinks they're the
Mhm.
greatest thing ever. So that's how she
Mhm.
wants to live her life. Now, with that being said, you then go ahead and you look at just Esmeralda. She is a character that is mad because she lost the being the head person, being in charge. She's
Yes.
mad about that. Okay, I understand that. But then she starts saying, "Oh, Mare's asexual." What? And then she plays it off as, "Oh, well, the thing is, I don't speak English that well. Suffer."
But the joke being that she's a sexual person, but she's the way she's saying it, it's
Yeah,
asexual, but it's like, no, she's not asexual. But that actually leads to a good bit because there was a misunderstanding with Ned, and then Ned he gave Mare the worst apology card you could ever give. It was this like hound, and then
yeah.
he's like, "Sorry,
But
sorry
it's
for misgendering your sexuality." I like that. I like
yeah,
see
it's
that
just like
works, and that was good. So they
that
built
that
on it.
yeah. But I wasn't too big on that. I
I
thought that
don't know.
was kind of
I
lame.
liked it.
But like even other
I thought it
things,
was kind of it was like cringe, but kind of clever at the same time.
yeah. But then there's other things that she's doing too, where she's like cutting the line or cutting the funding for the lines. I think it was
Yeah,
episode two
yeah,
or episode three, and I'm like, so she's like purposely
yes,
sabotaging Ned. And like the higher up, what's his name? Ken knows about this, and he's like,
yeah. No,
okay,
Ken and Esmeralda
and it's like,
are nothing
because
but
it's
trouble together. Separately, they're different, but
yeah,
together
and
they're really really bad, and they are a pain in
yeah,
Ned's side. And I think that was
mhm,
interesting because we didn't have antagonists in the office. There were a few people definitely that got on people's nerves, and obviously, Michael Scott hated Toby and whatever. But it was different to see that there would be actual antagonists like in the first season.
yeah. But again, to me,
I
it
agree.
didn't make any
Really,
sense. I
yeah,
just,
there were certain things.
I
I'll say
just
this,
didn't make.
and this will transition into the last part here. Yeah, Esmeralda, like I said, there were just many parts, especially at the beginning, that were very just confusing and didn't add up entirely. But believe it or not, Mitchell, as the show kept going and they kind of worked her character out, not to say that I actually think she should still be there, but her character worked for me way more and her function worked way more. But no, but hear me out. We're gonna now go into the next part, because if we're gonna have Esmeralda for season two, here's what I would want to see going forward. Okay, because she was in the office, she did her thing. That's all. That's all you need. I don't think she needs to be at the Talia Truth Teller anymore. It's very clear that the way that this character was designed, she's designed to be purposefully antagonistic. I think that because she's the editor of the online version, there's gonna be a breaking point in season two. And I think that she's either gonna be pushed out or she's gonna outright quit, and she may start up her own publication and do it the way she wants to do it and directly compete with the Toledo Truth Teller because she's that petty. And I think that if they shifted her role in that way, I think her character would work even more. I thought she ended up being better than I expected toward the end of season one, but her role would be even better if they shifted her away from the main office and more toward being kind of a competition, because there were competitors in the office. I'm blanking on all these names,
Mhm.
but they had those kinds of characters, and they definitely were challenging sort of the Scranton branch and that kind
Even
of thing. So they could go in that direction if they want to.
yeah, even the branches were in
Yeah, the
competition with
branches
each
were in
other.
competition with each other, but because of newspapers, I mean, publications are always going to be, in competition with each other, and it could also sort of fuel like, maybe Esmeralda has some people that she hired, and she's going to try to get the story, and the Toledo Truth Teller, they're going to have to try to get to there first to like, one up her and that kind of thing. That I think that could be kind of interesting.
Oh my god. You know who always wanted to be a writer on The
Hmm.
Office, right?
Oh, oh,
Toby. Imagine if she starts her own publication, hires
That would
Toby.
be cool. That would be really interesting. I in a way I could kind of see it, but I think she would be kind of like, you know what? You know what? Let me hear me out. This is not gonna make sense to you at first, but just follow me where I go with this, because I think that she may hire Toby, but she would hire Toby reluctantly because she would be kind of like an Italian Michael Scott. And she's getting the same vibes that Michael got from him. And she's like, I don't know about this person. Why is he so dumpy? I don't understand why I have to do this. But listen, he's the best I got. His resume is very impressive. And I have to. But I don't want to. That Toby, I don't know what it is. I just don't vibe with him or something like that, right? Just I think that would actually, sort of like I said, it would just shift her character away from how they introduced her and put her in a better role that could actually make the show a lot more dynamic. Another thing also that they were very strongly hinting at is that Mayor, absolutely, in my opinion, Mayor should be the managing editor of the online version, and they kind of established that she can do the job much better than Esmeralda can. And she has editorial experience, and all she was doing was just like getting the stories and then just placing them down in a box so that the online version would get out. I think that, and especially because of her military experience, it would be so perfect if she was actually covering sort of like veterans stories or local stories with veterans or military or whatever, and do some cool
Mhm.
stuff there and expand there. But I think she should be the managing editor, not Esmeralda, and that I think could also sort of like make things a little more dynamic, a little more interesting, especially because of what happens at the very end of season one, which I thought it was a little too soon, to be honest. But to each their own. I won't get into that too much, because I actually would rather people watch the moment for themselves. But there's a very big moment at the end of season one that sets up season two, kind of awkwardly, but also like in an interesting way. So, but and then for Ned can keep doing Ned things. Everybody else can really do
Hmm.
their things, and there's a lot of very interesting setup that season one kind of established. But I definitely want more from uh Aodani. Is that how you say it? The black girl,
Wait, who is
Aodani or
it?
something?
Ed
Edalola, I don't know.
Delolo.
Edalola, and Adam. I want more out of those characters. They were still good starts. We'll see what happens. There were some interesting suggestions about Adam, and I think those are gonna get dropped. It was a little weird, some of the things, but I'm telling you, Mitchell, Alex Edelman is a
Mhm.
really, really funny upcoming stand-up comedian. So it's amazing that he's even on the show to begin with. But I think that there's going to be some interesting stuff that he'll do coming up. I want his character to be much more developed. I think it was okay how he started, but he could actually be very dynamic if the show really allowed him to be, and especially to allow his humor to sort of come out. But that's really what I would like to see. I want Esmeralda to have her role completely shifted. Everybody else can stay exactly where they are, and Mayor would become the new managing editor of the online version.
Yeah, I agree. I want to see some more development, obviously, like we mentioned before, and hopefully we'll get it in the next season. And I'm interested to see where this goes. But I think they hit it. I think they hit it. I'm interested to see again where they go with this. I wonder if it's always going to be a 10 episode
Yeah,
type season,
yeah.
um, going forward, and how are they going to approach this?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, just because of the landscape of streaming, I would not be surprised if it is a 10 episode season per year.
Hmm.
I wish it wasn't like that. I think it was a little irresponsible of Peacock NBC to just drop all 10 episodes at once. It was very strange, and people were
Hmm.
speculating the reason why was because it wasn't getting a lot of good reviews, and that they may have been kind of skittish, but it ended up that they you know renewed for season two. So they people are questioning like what the
Yeah.
heck was up with that. So I also would like to see
Hmm.
for season two weekly releases of the episodes. You have 10 episodes. That
Yeah.
means 10 weeks out of the year. Let's, build it up a lot more and not just drop every episode all at once. Or if you were to
Yes.
drop 2 episodes at the start, maybe 3, because some streamers do that. And then you release, thereafter.
Hmm.
But like let's get back to weekly. We don't need this Netflix like drop everything all at once and binge when you can. That model is basically dying. Everybody really wants to have the build up again, and that I think would help as well. So, finally, I think we're gonna wrap it. We're gonna wrap it up. This is definitely gonna be a full show, Mitchell. I'm just gonna say that much. But I want to talk about ideas because this show has a lot of leg room for different ideas, especially when it comes to satire related to journalism, newspapers, um, and just general just general pettiness and idiocy and all of that. And there were some really good ideas in a lot of the episodes. Here's my pitch for a couple of
Hmm.
different kinds of things that they could be doing going forward. Um, there was some they put some money into some production, especially with sort of the flashbacks of the Toledo truth teller in the 1970s. I think
Yeah.
that if they really wanted to go further, they should be doing parodies of, All the President's Men. They should be doing parodies of movies like Argo or, Spotlight. All of these really well known movies, and you can get something around them. Actually, there was one episode. It was the scammer, the person who was scamming people out of their money because they were like some online lover or whatever. That kind of reminded me of kind of like a spotlight sort of scenario. in a way. But take from the classics, take from things that are very familiar to people. All the President's Men would actually be a really fun, a really good model to take away from. And but also like
Hmm.
do like find the stories that these characters are taking in terms of their pettiness. Um, you know, they're going to go in and they're going to find something, and they may break something, or they might do something, and they may go ahead and then they make a story out of their own mistakes, or they make a story out of
Hmm.
something that they accidentally found, and it's like, oh shit, like this person's like really horrible, but we have to cover it. What are the repercussions of that? Because it's got to be out in public, because that's journalistic integrity, but what does that really mean? So it's just like, because a lot of the episodes were very by the book and very straightforward. But if you want to keep it dynamic and keep it very interesting, try to go outside the box. Try to go for the kinds of stories that could really pump up the comedy, and pump up the storytelling potential. Again, it's a very good start, but I definitely think that they could go even further with the comedy. So yeah, so Mitchell, what are some of your thoughts? Where do you think the paper may go? What are your ideas for maybe future episodes?
Um, they didn't really dive too much into people's families
Yep.
and personal life. I think we're
Hmm.
going to get more of that. One of the classic episodes for me was the episode where Oscar faked being sick, and Michael Scott and Dwight tailed him for the day, and they didn't realize that they caught him
Hmm.
being gay. Like that, they caught him with his
Yes.
boyfriend, and he was gay, and they just thought like, oh, he was hanging out with his
Yes.
friend the whole time. They didn't realize it, like, and then then they hang out at his
Yep.
house and watch a movie. Like that was one of the funnier earlier episodes, and like I don't know if they should bring back the pranks, but the cold opens were like from The Office were just
Yeah.
so good. Like they were so random. Like there was one where Jim has Dwight's phone and he has it connected to a
Hmm.
Bluetooth. I want to see some good
Yeah.
cold
Yeah.
opens. Um, that's my plan for the future. Better cold opens. I want some funny stuff happening. I want to see some people fall. I want it to be comedic.
Yeah, I think
Um,
Travis
yeah.
is the one that I think has the greatest potential for some of that. Not so much pranks, but in terms of just these general observations or
Yeah.
shenanigans that he might get himself into, or other characters into. I liked that he went to a park ranger's office, and it ended up being his like ex girlfriend, and for the
Hmm.
story like that, like, see, like that's what I'm saying, like when you get the actual comedy, like their personal kind of gripes or their personal things, and they make that as a news story. That's a lot of where the comedy shines. And I like that out of Travis. I think Travis is definitely going to be one of the sillier characters in the future. But I think there's a lot of potential with everybody, and I agree about the cold opens. The cold opens I thought were pretty good, but it really was the rest of the
Mm,
episodes. I like not to the level of The Office. To be very, very, very
yeah.
clear, like those cold opens are like the mountaintop. As a starting point, I thought they were good. So that's my opinion. But like, no, you can't
Yeah.
beat The Office. You can't beat The Office in terms of the cold opens. Like you just can't.
My favorite cold open was when Andy and Dwight started. They got the billboards, and there she's doing all the promiscuous things, and people drew dongs all over them, all across the city. And then there's one with him and Dwight,
Hmm.
and it looks like Andy is like boning Dwight.
Oh God. Oh
Yeah,
no. Well,
and then
my favorite
one,
is the one where it's the music. It's like the musical number. It's like no, 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 no. Oh my god, I love that
yeah.
one.
Angela slams the door. She's like, "I don't want to be in your video."
And then like she throws the cat up while they're doing it. And this was different than the other episode when that happened. She throws up the cat. It's like, "Meow." And then they pass by Stanley. He's like, I'm not doing this. That
Yeah, or when they're throwing cheese balls at each other.
Yeah. Oh, and then the nobody, and then uh Dwight is like being kind of creepy and weird. Nobody, nobody. So
Yeah, with the
with the
knife.
knife, exactly.
Or when
Love it.
Jim and Pam are away because of paternity leave, Dwight
Yeah.
has Megadesk. Getting addicted to Megadesk was my fault, but I will have Megadesk again. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of good stuff, but I think that pretty much wraps it up.
Yeah.
We wrapped up the series. We talked about where we wanted to go. We talked about the characters. Anything else you wanted to talk about,
Yeah,
Evan?
I know. I think that just about covers it. We will see what happens in the future. And they just got to figure out they have a good foundation. Now they just need to
Hmm.
figure out their niche. They need to figure out what works. They need to rule out what doesn't work. Esmeralda, it does not work, but there was still a lot of potential even for her as a character. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. But Evan pretty much wrapped it up there. So until next time, everyone, we'll see you in the next video. Peace out.